The Renaissance period was a massive rebirth of culture, art, and intellectualism in Europe. This period started in the 14th century and ended in the 17th century. The symbol of the Italian Renaissance and one of the most famous cathedrals in Italy was the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore. Not only was the cathedral a symbol of the Italian Renaissance and the prosperity of Florence, but it was also a massively important building for religious and artistic reasons. The cathedral was inspired by ancient Roman architecture and used classical techniques in its design. Combined with the quality of its construction, it set a new standard for architecture in the Renaissance period. The cathedral was also home to some incredibly famous pieces of art, such as the Gates of Paradise and the Last Judgment. Interestingly, the Florence Cathedral was supposed to house Michelangelo's statue of David, for which it was commissioned for, but the Florentine government instead placed it elsewhere. The cathedral started construction in 1296 and finally completed it in 1436, taking 140 years to finish the project. Given that the Cathedral of Santa Maria was built so long ago, most of the construction process was lost to time. However, the construction of the cathedral can be roughly guessed based on other cathedrals built in the time period. The typical cathedral was built using a combination of stone masonry, ribbed vaults, pointed arches, and flying buttresses. The cathedral was built out of Italian marble sourced from nearby quarries. The only false work needed was scaffolding and centering. The dome of the cathedral was the most impressive piece of it all because it was built without using any buttresses, which was thought to be impossible at the time. The builder of the dome, Brunelleschi, literally invented new technology to construct the dome, one of which was amphibious boats. The marble blocks used for the dome were ferried to the city by boat and then offloaded onto horse or oxen-drawn carriages and taken to the construction site. Brunelleschi saw that the marble blocks were being damaged when transferring from boat to carriage, so he built boats that could go on land and deliver the marble directly. Brunelleschi also invented new building techniques to build the dome. He used a two-layered dome, with the outside dome supporting and protecting the inner dome. The domes were made of two layers of bricks placed in a vertical herringbone pattern to make them self-supporting. The inner dome was reinforced using stone and chain loops to resist the outward spreading force and thus alleviating the need for buttresses. He also used iron chains embedded in the masonry, similar to reinforcing concrete with rebar. The chain reinforced masonry made the dome more durable and resistant structural forces. The structural forces of the cathedral had to withstand mostly compression, tension, and shear. The size of the cathedral means it had to resist the wind and hold up the heavy structure. The cathedral also had a dome, which has compression and tension forces. Additionally, Italy gets minor earthquakes very frequently, so the cathedral has to deal with shear forces from earthquakes too. Although the construction of the cathedral shares some techniques with modern buildings, there have been some extreme cultural and technological changes in the last 600 years. The Cathedral of Santa Maria was very culturally significant for its time period, but that raises some questions for how it would be built today, as it's no longer the Renaissance. Another issue would be how the city of Florence is quite densely populated and urbanized, meaning there would be significant disruption caused by the construction of the cathedral. Also, the importance of religion has diminished significantly since the 1400s, and the idea of building a massive cathedral is very far from people's minds. If the cathedral was built today, it might not have the same significance and would likely be built out of lower quality materials like concrete. If concrete is used, there would need to be formwork for the concrete and centering for the dome, which would likely be built in pieces and assembled by a crane. Even if the cathedral was built out of the same marble as the original, the process would be different. Assuming there is the same Italian marble, modern trucks and trains would be able to speed up the process of resource acquisition, and the use of modern scaffolding would make the construction faster and safer for workers. This time, the project would only take decades instead of over a century to complete.